Hello and welcome to another episode of Tuesdays with Morrissey. I'm Adam Morrissey. I'm grateful to be joined by someone whose story and work has inspired so many. That's Antong Lucky. Antong is the leader of a Dallas-based group called the Urban Specialists that works with at-risk youth to break cycles of generational poverty and violence in urban communities, as well as a recent author of his new book, A Redemptive Path Forward. Antong, great to see you today. We're far overdue. How are you?
Man, I am good. I am so blessed and so honored to be on the show with you, Adam, man. You know, we go way back like 8-track.
Yeah, we're definitely overdue. So excited to catch up. And again, congratulations on the new book. Excited to dive in on that. Was curious to get your thoughts. You were featured in a 2016 Forbes article called The Gangster, the Preacher, and the Speaker of the House about your attendance of the State of the Union address with then Speaker of the House and my fellow Miami University alumni, Senator Paul Ryan. What was the background and significance of that article and experience for you?
Okay, I'm going to go real fast, but Paul Ryan, Senator Paul Ryan, Speaker of the House Paul Ryan, who is a good friend of mine and late great Bishop Fomer, had heard about the work that we were doing in Dallas. Specifically, he heard about the work we've done to bring activists and law enforcement together after 7/7/16, where 5 officers tragically lost their life and 4 others was injured. And so we brokered a peace treaty between police and communities so that Dallas can go up into riot mode, that we went into repentance, right? And prior to that, the speaker was doing this poverty tour, right? He was going around the country looking at organizations who are working in communities to break the back of poverty, right? And it was just by happenstance that Bishop Omar met Paul Ryan, and he came to Dallas to see us. And then from that, it just bubbled into a relationship, man. And it was interesting too, cause meeting him, right? Very likable guy, very well balanced guy. He's liked on both sides. But I remember when when I met him, I flew to DC, and he was planning this. I think it was called a 79-point plan that he was trying to overhaul welfare, right? And I was listening. He had flew these groups in. It was probably about 20 of us in a private meeting talking about this plan. And at the end of the plan, I walked up to him and I said, "Man, I understand what you're saying." I said, "But states' rights in Texas, I mean, and it just don't feel right, right?" And we had some conversation. I'll talk about that later. But he told me, he said, "Antong, I never thought about it in that perspective." And we began to have conversations about that. He never did put that plan out, but I think it was just him seeing me have those kind of thoughts around something that he was presenting that kind of bonded us. And then me and him and Omar just became buddies, man. And so to the extent, he would come to Dallas. Whenever he came to Dallas, he would call Omar and I. We would sit down and he would talk to us about what he was thinking and just kind of using us as advisors or sounding boards to some of the things that he was doing, some of the great things he was doing. And then that ultimately ended up with us being invited to sit in his box at the State of the Union, last State of the Union address for President Barack Obama. So shout out to Paul Ryan, that's my guy.
Yeah, it sounds like a powerful experience. Now, your story is such like a core part of the work you do, and we'll get into what you guys are doing at the Urban Specialists for sure. But how do you connect the dots? Between your past life, which, as I understand it, was the leader of the Dallas chapter of the Blood Gang. We're talking decades ago, to new life of positive impact, significance, and meeting, and even working at the cross section of some of the highest ranking political officials in the country. How do you connect those dots to where you were and where you are today?
I think that the thread of everything is redemption and transformation, right? I think that's the thread. Going back, even when I first met Paul Rand, I want to go back this. I read his book. I'm a nerd. You may not believe that, but I'm a super nerd, right? So I read his book, A Way Forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you notice, my book is called a
Yeah.
redemptive path
Good.
forward.
Very good. Good homage.
Yeah, so it has some similarities and some compare and contrast with what Paul was talking about in his book, right? But the underlying thread that I think that took me from the drug house to the White House was the fact that uh, I really believe and embodied redemption and transformation that we all are entitled to. Like we all are entitled to. We all have made some mistakes in our past that we don't care to admit, or some of us do. But those mistakes don't define who we are. You know that we ultimately have, each and every last one of us have within us the ability to rise above they worst mistake. And so that's been like the storyline of my life. Growing up in poverty, growing up in the projects. I was straight A student, talent gifted student, but I yielded to the neighborhood, which ideal was survival and toughness and et cetera, et cetera. So as much as I wanted to be the good kid and the smart kid and this, the neighborhood said otherwise. And I end up yielding. I end up starting the first blood gang in Dallas, and I end up standing in front of a judge who then said, "You're a menace to society," and he sent me to prison. But it was that situation that made me become very introspective about my life and how I got to that point. How did I go from an A on the roll, talented and gifted student to a judge saying I was a menace to society? And so when I got to prison, I seen men who went through that same pathway, and I seen that was a problem. So I began to do the self work of working on myself, challenging all of the cognitive distortions that I had embraced growing up, and really shedding all that, unlayering, and becoming very vulnerable and very courageous in my ability to evolve, right? And so that led me to doing work in prison, where I became sought after prison, to getting out of prison, meeting Bishop Omar, and been working in communities for the last 22 years, right? Trying to work. And I think, and Adam, I think what's so important about the work that I do and that my mentor, Bishop Omar, did, was that we believed in bringing people together. We believed in forgiveness. We believed in redemption. That was the core of our work. Beyond anything that we did, we could sit in the room with anybody and negotiate and find that common ground. And that was what was different in the activism of what we did versus everybody else. Everybody else came from this condemnation, I'm gonna condemn you perspective. And me and Omar always said that we could find a commonality, like we can find something that we can agree on and we can push forward. And I think that became like the hallmark of what we do. That led us to the Paul Ryans of the world and many other people who may not have the same experience or ideology as we had, but that didn't make us build a wall. We always was about building bridges, not calling people out, but calling them in. And with the work that we've done, that's been kind of like the undercurrent of all the work that we do, bringing people together. Not saying that we want to go, we want to end or destroy our democracy or our constitution. We always say this is the best country. We have the best constitution. We have the best country in the world. We just got to make it apply to everybody. Everybody has a part to play to do their part. But this is the best country in the world. We've been saying that for 22 years, and so I
Yeah.
think that attracted some of the people that we've been attracted to, and some of the places that we went. It's that refreshing message of
Yeah.
yeah.
That's good stuff. I mean, two things from hearing your story in the past that I remember. One thing that was said to you by a mentor figure, and then something that you share now. Any idea what those might be?
Yeah, my first mentor was Willie Ray Fleming, and this brother approached me, in 1997, and his exact words to me were, he said, "Little brother," and I was in prison, coming out the chow hall, that's the kitchen, and he said, I didn't even know him. He said, "Little brother," he said, "all these men in here, they pay homage to you, they do whatever you ask them to do, they follow you." And he said, "Little brother," I was 19 at the time. He said, "if you have the ability to lead these guys to do wrong, in you is also the same ability to lead these guys to do right. He said, you are a natural born leader. And when he said those words to me, Adam, I had never thought of it like that. But it opened up something in me, man. It opened up something in me. And I began to pay attention to how people were responding to me. And then I realized that he was right. He was actually 100% right in what he was saying. And as he began to mentor me and began to give me books to read, man, I honed in on my leadership ability, and I became responsible for making sure that I lead brothers in the right direction because I once was misled, and so I wanted to be leading brothers in the right direction. So I spent all my time trying to make sure I lead people in the right way. My leadership is about doing what's right. It's about being accountable. It's about love, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, it was those words. It was those words that opened me up, man. I mean, took me from at one point of my life a full-time gang member to, being in the White House and accepting awards across the country and meeting some amazing people who I probably would have never met doing this work. I think it was all, just due to the fact that when my mentors told me that, it unlocked something in me.
Yeah, sounds like quite the spark. The other one that stands out, and I'll give you some help on this one because it'd be tough probably for you to identify all the impactful things you've said.
Yeah.
And when you were reflecting, you're saying, "No, I was a businessman and a leader. I was just in the wrong business."
Oh yeah, no doubt. No doubt. I was definitely a CEO. I just had the wrong product.
Yeah.
I understood back, in my first half of my life, I understood business just naturally. I understood buy low, sell high. When I was in that other life, I ran it like a business. I ran it like a real business. I just had the wrong product, man, and I needed someone to show me, to enlighten me, that I conduct that those skills that I had, that were transferable, that I was able to, once I changed my character, my characteristics had a market advantage in this economy. So I was able to take those same skills and apply them and running the organization and writing my book and a number of other things that I was doing. Those same skills apply. And so it was just about someone turning me in the right direction. That's why having mentors play a very important part of my life. I've been fortunate enough to have some great mentors. I mean, some less known and some that are known who have took the time out to mentor me and give me that kind of information and advice I need to make the right decisions.
Me too. Yeah, it's the role of mentorship. I don't think can be understated. So, to talk a little bit about what you guys are doing at Urban Specialists, what are some things that you guys are really focused on in this season of the organization?
Man, we've went through a metamorphosis since Bishop Fomer died, and I have changed our strategy. As you mentioned earlier, we were more so about direct servicing, making sure kids such as I, who were growing up in communities, who were very talented, genius, but they talents were being snuffed out by an environment that said they had to be a certain way. And so we focused on those kids. Those were the kids who were like me when I was young. I yearned for a mentor who could lead me in the right direction, but they were absent. They weren't there, and so we attacked that. But since Bishop died, we realized something. I realized something that urban specialists can't do it alone, right? And so what we did, Adam, was we contracted with a national curriculum design company, uh, and who then took everything that we've learned over the last 20 some years, and we created a curriculum to train other individuals to be able to do the work, right? So now urban specialists identifies local leadership that's indigenous to the neighborhoods that they serve, and then we train and teach them what we know on how to be effective in a community, thus giving us the ability to scale, thus giving us the ability to impact more people, thus giving us the ability to have more reach. And so, what we've been doing in this season is we've been having cohort after cohort training individuals with what we know on how to be effective in communities, how to take their influence and be effective in mentoring youth or just helping communities. It's not just mentoring youth, it's helping communities. And then also we've launched the Bishop Omar School of Entrepreneurship because our mission at Urban Special is disrupting the trends of violence and poverty, and they go hand in hand. And so a lot of times we have individuals who will come through our pathway of learning how to impact communities. And then most of those individuals, a great deal of them are entrepreneur. They like me. They got entrepreneur aspirations. Some of them may still have the wrong product and we have to, make them trade that out. But we gave them entrepreneurship as a way to have a different product. And so they go through that pathway. So we've been busy day by day working on how do we equip people, equip more people, how do we bring more people into our acquisition funnel, and then how do we give people pathways that they can get involved in a community. So let me just say it like this. You know how Susan Common, when they're talking about counsel, is the big dog, and all these
Yeah.
organizations plug in the Susan Common. But that's how Urban Specials is. We've looked at ourselves as the people who are in this space of violence and poverty, and we're connecting all of these other smaller nonprofits and saying, take the knowledge that we got and let us help you and let us introduce you to a stand together, or let us introduce you to how do you get your books done right, or how do you set up your nonprofit right. Let us introduce you to resources so that you could be more effective. Let us give you training so that you can be more effective in engaging in community. And so we've become that. So our day to day is how do we empower, how do we equip other individuals to do the work, and then taking them through those pathways where they'll go through the entrepreneur school if they're interested in entrepreneurship, or they'll work directly in neighborhoods. So we've been pounding away on that, man. We've been
Yeah.
away.
Awesome. Are there particular projects that you're most excited about?
I love the entrepreneurship school. I mean, it's when I in 2006, Adam, I thought I was an entrepreneur, but then I took this certificate course at SMU. It was the Root Institute for Entrepreneurship, and I learned so much about entrepreneurship that if I had prior, I'd probably be a billionaire right now. And I remember that light bulb clicking in my head as I was going through that course, right? And I'm now 15 years later, when I see these OGs or I see these change makers going through this entrepreneur, and I'm being able to see when that light bulb come on in their head like it did for me. That's the beauty of this work, man. Seeing a lot of our participants getting accepted into the Chase, JP Morgan Chase program, or the Frost Bank program, because we've partnered with a number of banks, and we're introducing our community to these institutions that they otherwise wouldn't have a relationship with. And just to see that happen and see the excitement on their face, I'm so proud of that. And then another program that I'm happy about too is our Heal America movement program. And we just did the Summer of Healing this past summer, where we funded 18 awardees in 43 cities across the country to the tune of $2 million. But each organization who were working to bridge the gap between law enforcement and community. So, man,
Yeah.
that was excited just traveling to see those organizations and the excitement of them being able to get funding without a whole bunch of red tape to do exactly what they do and bridging the gap between law enforcement community, because we believe that relationship has to be a relationship that's in partnership in order for our communities to not experience the levels of violence that they experience. That we believe that our men in blue, we have to support them and they support us and making sure our community is safe. So those two projects are something I'm very proud of.
Yeah, definitely. It seems like you get the best of both worlds. You get the small change on the individual level,
Right.
and you get the bigger change on the community level, and seeing how that ripples out. So that's got to be pretty fun.
Yeah.
Uh, you mentioned Bishop Omar a couple times. I was very sorry to hear about his passing. I know he was the founder of the Urban Specialist, a good friend and mentor to you, and somebody I was fortunate to get to meet at least a handful of times. Could you speak a little bit about your relationship with Bishop O and his legacy?
Man, Bishop Omar, the late great Bishop Omar, was one of the most smartest persons I've ever met in my lifetime. Somebody who he spent his entire life helping and adding meaning to other people's lives, and somebody who could walk in any room. His personality was so big, man, that whenever he walked in a room, man, everybody just drew to him, and he could provide a solution to every problem. He never was at a loss of words, man, and he was just an amazing guy, man. I was fortunate to meet him coming out of prison, man. He was 3 years older than me, but he was wise beyond years, man, and his passion was unmatched. And so he mentored me from 2000 to 2021 before he passed, and we talked every single day. But this brother was a brother who had connections everywhere. People from every walks of life, from the people at the bottom to the people at the very top, relied on his expertise, his wisdom. I mean, I would just be blown away by the number of people and the quality of people who would call on Bishop Omar to help him, for him to help solve their issues or their problems. Man, this dude he was the man, man. I'm talking about it's no other Bishop Omar. Uh, he was the founder of Urban Specialists. He was the founder of the Heal America movement. I remember him just saying, God told me to heal America. And it was pre Ahmaud Arbery, pre George Floyd. It was he just had this idea of addressing the polarization in America about bringing people together. He really believed in bringing people together. He coined the term that only inspired people can inspire people. So you have to always be inspiration. And that was just something, it was so much wisdom that Omar had, that God had blessed him with, man. And I watched from the passenger seat how he helped hundreds of thousands of people. To this day, people still text me or call me who I never knew that was connected to Omar. I'd be like, how did he have the time in the day to know all these people? And his impact, man, it's just across the country, man. So he was definitely great. He was a mentor to me. He was a father figure. He was a sage. He was my advisor. He was my therapist. He was everything, man. I mean,
Yeah.
and he could do it well. He used to do it well. I mean, he was never off. He was never off. The only problem that Omar had, he could never be on time. He could never be on time. We could never solve that problem. But
he was preparing to bring his best self to everything.
yeah, but when he showed up, man, he showed up. You knew he was there. I mean, you could be sitting in a meeting like pissed off that he ain't made it there yet. And when he walked in, the whole energy changed, man. And
Yeah.
he would be the sealer of the meeting. And so that's just the kind of person, big personality, lovable, a church man, a God man, he was just all of that, man. He was the epitome of the Renaissance, man. He was that guy, man. That was Omar. That was my brother.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Thank you for sharing that. Your story and your transformation, just from what you're explaining today, has been a big part of your work and, your the things you do to inspire others, and make impact in the world. What was it like to put your story into the memoir, A Redemptive Path Forward?
Man, it was very therapeutic. I will say that much, man, because when you write a memoir, it's you telling something from your account, right? And initially, that sounds good. It's like, okay, I'm telling what I remember, right? But I think the interesting part is when you begin to recall events that involve other people, you start having it. You have analysis paralysis. That's what I called it, right? Because you don't get paralyzed, you just get froze. Because
Yeah.
you start thinking about, although I may have saw a situation this way, someone else may have saw it totally different. And then you start thinking in your mind, like, you know, what if they don't agree with how you see this? Because you never thought about that. You initially you think that all of the experiences that you've shared, everybody shared those experiences and enjoyed those experiences and felt those experiences the exact same way you felt. And
Mhm.
when you realize that that's not true, that's become scary. And so that was and so a lot of stuff came up for me, like talking about in the beginning, my mother and her relationships, and that and her relationship to me, etc. So these were things that I never talked to my mother about. And so as I wrote them and put them on that paper, and then when I started thinking about it, I was wondering, how would she feel about that, right? Because I said some stuff, I divulged some stuff, and so that was interesting, man. But it brought me and my mother close, though. It really, because a lot of the stuff that I said in the book, she never knew from my perspective, and it made her really tune in to our relationship. And I'm gonna be honest, quite honest with me. I think it made my mother become a mother. After all those years, because I think become a better mother, because I think all those years she realized she was just doing what she could, from her perspective, without the consent or without the input of her kids. And so now that she get that input, it made her say, let me change the way. Let me be a little bit better. Let me be a little bit more expressive. 'Cause I grew up, my mother didn't tell me she loved me. She shows you, but she wasn't expressive. So now she never stopped telling me she loved me. If I'm sick, Adam, she gonna send soup. She gonna send the doctor. She gonna send check. I gotta, and I'll be like, Mom, I'm good. I'm good. Okay, but I know that is that's a direct correlation to the book, right? So it was that, putting that out to the world, and then a lot of the stuff that happened that I put in there that involved other people. I was nervous, but ultimately I got to this space where I was saying this is my truth, and I wanted people to have a blueprint uh, of the journey, to understand like what I went through, like going from that neighborhood that I described to the White House or to the State of the Union or to meeting the Koch brother, whoever, just how that journey took place. And the theme of it was my consistency to the mission and to heaven. Like that, cause I never changed from time I got out of prison to now. I stayed consistent. And I think it was just the law of you reap what you sow. And I think God began to bless me in many ways that I couldn't have never saw coming because of my consistency. And that book was the ultimate, like, here it is. Here goes something that you can read, that you can see, you can understand what I was thinking. And that as you read that book, you're gonna say, man, you're gonna find something that's applicable to your own life. I wrote it in that sense that somebody else would become inspired and say, I have something to offer. I have something to contribute to making this world a better place. And so that's how,
Awesome.
yeah,
Yeah, really cool. You said a couple things that really resonated. I can imagine, there's a saying I've heard that thoughts aren't fully formed until spoken.
yes,
I imagine there was some real processing going on
yes,
in the process. And then, another one, I can't remember who said it, but something to the extent of, creativity and art is as much of a journey of self-discovery as self-expression.
yes, yeah. That's so
It
true.
feels like that held true for you.
Yes, that's so true. Whoever said that, that is a true statement.
Yeah, we'll look it up and give them credit. But Antong, you've been really generous with your time. We'll definitely have links to a redemptive path forward.
Yes,
What's the best way to keep up with the work you're doing at Urban Specialists and elsewhere?
yes. Go on to the website, it's urbanspecialist.org, or any of the social media pages. It's the Urban Specialist on all other social media. Or you can just follow me personally at Antong Speaks on all social media. I'm always updating and posting a lot of the stuff that I'm doing, a lot of the work that's happening, a lot of ways that you can get involved. You might want to get involved. You may want to do something. You might want to come out and serve, or you might want to donate. It don't matter. just I believe that we all have a part to play in making this world better to show that, our democracy is the best democracy around this country, that our constitution is the best constitution around this continent, and that we have to always stand up to defend that. And these principles that we live by, the principles that's going to keep us a great nation, a great country, a great family, great individuals. And so, if you want to get involved, just go to those social links, follow us, and we'll love to have you. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Antong. We'll talk more soon.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, man.